Welcome to Hardcore Productions. I am Rodney Goodwin, Blue Pearl Oracle, and I am honored to be able to do these segments and put out material on my channel. It's an honor. I love doing it, and I hope that this segment will enlighten you a bit, if possible. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button below. And so you can catch up on, everything that I'm doing and everything that I'm putting out in context to these segments, getting into astrology, tarot, runes, and different aspects of astropsychology and arts of gnosis. So, number one, knowing thyself is the primary goal here, to come into a position where you are actually knowing how your disposition and how you tick, how you work. So this is where we have to realize that, there's so much more here that we haven't tapped into. And getting into understanding the runes is a very powerful, and I'm going to say prerequisite and a mandatory aspect of learning and engaging with the runes to come into a place where you're activating your high heart. It is the fire letter codex. It is an ancient language. It is the language that is, I believe, the whisperings and the makeup of the cosmos in context to what's being weaved from our past, present, and future. We can work with the runic energy, which I believe are frequencies and vibrations and sound when we galder the runes, when we speak them forth, that are a clear fabric of the universal makeup. And so these energies are to be worked with, brought into a place where if those energies are Merkstave, which means that they are inverted, definitely dealing with shadow aspects and context. The goal here is to flip the inversions from the Merkstave to the upright position of the runic energy so that we can begin to have open conduits of power and authority and presence that we walk in that is connected to our high heart or our fifth chamber or the high heart that's ignited with the fire of this codex. Igniting your personal fire letter codex in context to that. So that's the goal here, working with the runes. And as far as I'm concerned, they are very, very powerful. And it's something that, when you're ready to be initiated into those, they will call you, they will appear, they will speak to you, they will come to you. And when they do, then that means it is time to start to work with them. The first one that came to me was Ewaz, and the horse and the rider, learning how to trust yourself. And with my disposition, it was perfect because it did initiate me into a place where I began to work with Ewaz. And then, of course, after that, the other runes begin to unfold and open up, and they begin to bring more insight and foresight and understanding of how those energies work within me and where they are blocked in context to my shadow aspect, and how then to work with that shadow aspect and those runic energies to break down the overlays and the programs and the programming and the patterning of destructive behavior and destructive programming, and take that and bring it into a place where it comes into balance and harmony so that things can open up. And the goal here is to get them to open up, destroy or demolish or transmute the programming into ashes so that the phoenix can rise up from those ashes, connect to the high heart and the high heart intelligence or heart core intelligence, which gets ignited. And then that's when the runes become very powerful within you. And so this is the goal. This is what we want to get to. So I started to look at Revelation 4. As many of you know, I came out of the church realm many years ago. I still do use the biblical texts as references. A lot of bullshit in the Bible. It's Metatronic in context. But again, we are dealing with, certain truths that are in there. But again, I'm going to say this, without paganism, there wouldn't be any Christianity. I mean, you got to look at the archetype of Odin and Jesus, and you can put them together and see how they do correlate. And there's so much correlation between the two. And I know many of you know that. But again, we are dealing with the runes here, and the biblical text that I'm using here is Revelation 4, which is very interesting in context to what it brings forth, to the rainbow bridge, the 24 elders, and corresponding to the rainbow around the throne, and the emerald, getting into the emerald or the emerald order. I mean, there's so many things here that are correlating, also getting into understanding the 24 elders around the throne, what the throne is, what all of these aspects are in context. So that's why I put the scripture up at the beginning of the segment, because that's kind of what we're going to break down. And then we're going to go through these energies and start to really look at them and look at correspondences. Let's get into it. Revelation, what does it mean? Revelation is just an unveiling. That's all it means. It's basically, if you wanted to put the word occult there, you could put the word occult there in the place of revelation, because revelation just means apocalypto, or an unveiling that's taking place. So the word occult means that which is hidden should be revealed. So it's only that which is hidden. So that which is hidden in context of revelation, you get these things, and you like going, oh, boom, and it hits you, right? And you have this revelation, right? What does that mean? That means all of a sudden the veil was lifted from your eyes and from your ears, and you could see and hear something. And so in the beginning of this chapter, in chapter 4 here, it says, come up higher, and I will show you things which must be. I don't believe the word hereafter was ever in that text, but again, it's in there. So hereafter. So I will show you things that must be, or that are. The key here is to come up higher, right? Accessing higher awareness, higher consciousness, right? A higher harmonic universal perspective, opening up, bringing revelation of the occult, that which is to de-occult it, right? So that we can have understanding, and overstanding. So this is the power of how the runes work. So when the runes call you, they're calling you because it's time for you to come into a place where you are being initiated. And the runes are very initiative in context. And there are high level initiating runes, and then there are runes that actually, destroy the overlays in context of Thurazaz and Hagalaz. Initiating runes is Iwaz, those are being a very high level initiating rune on Zeus. is I believe the rune of wisdom and sacrifice. Anzus is a representation of Odin, and what Odin had to do to sacrifice himself to pull the runes from Gunundagap, or from the womb. And so this is how we do it. We sacrifice ourselves unto ourselves. And the runes help us in context to doing that, working with their energies to remove and pulverize literally the overlays. There's so many stories within the Norse mythos in context that talk about this, and all the archetypes that are within the gods and within the animals and the animism that's there, and all of the power of what the symbolism actually represents. The runes are very, very much not going to fuck around with you. They're going to get shit done, what needs to get done. And so if that runic energy you're working with is being blocked, it's being blocked because it's murkstave, it's inverted. And that's what the problem is on this planet, is running into so many inversions and reversals in context to what the fuck truth actually is. When a rune is murkstave in your life, that means that there's shadow aspects there, and there's blockages there that are keeping the energy from vibrating and flowing through to create harmony and balance. I look at it like I look at the runes in light of astropsychology as well, because I believe it's all weaved together with the tarot, other aspects here. We're talking about, come up higher, right? And I will show you the things that must be, or that are, or what actually is. And so that's the goal. Get our, start to work with the higher consciousness, start to work with, bringing ourselves into positions where we're actually doing modalities that are creating higher awareness, that are creating higher, consciousness, that are driving us into places where we are being challenged with our consciousness and becoming uncomfortable. Because let me tell you, when a rune is murkstave and it's trying to come through, and you're trying to work with it, and it calls you, you will feel uncomfortable. It will reveal the shadow aspects that need to be, transmuted. Dealing with these certain aspects, it's beautiful because, once you start working with them, you start to realize how powerful that they really are. And so you've got to come up higher, man. You've got to make the choice. You've got to make the decision that I'm going to challenge my consciousness, okay, where it's at. I'm not going to be satisfied where I'm at with my, how I'm wielding my consciousness and how I am proceeding forth. Because, if we get comfortable with where we're at, then stagnation sets in, we become inert, and chaos then begins to happen. And that is something that we don't want to do. We want to be the goat. We want to keep on climbing the mountain, forging the path, forging our own path in context to these. This is the power of setting your intention for higher consciousness and challenging the consciousness and the version of you and where you're at right now, and challenging yourself, really doing it, not just talking about it, but actually doing the real work. And this is why I put these segments out, because it's part of the work that I'm doing right now. I'm working with this. Come up hither, and I will show you things that must be. And straightway I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. In context to talking about, an open door in heaven, talking about coming up, that's the process. We want to be able to bridge our consciousness to our higher self, connecting to the higher force. This is the goal. This is what the place where we need to learn how to operate and live and work with our system mechanics and how we operate. And working with your higher aspect and your higher self, bridging the aspects of your energy systems, and then working with the higher force to ignite that fifth chamber, ignite that high heart, ignite that heart core intelligence. This is the goal. This is where we want to get, because when we are igniting that, then we are bringing ourselves into a place where we are cultivating high levels of consciousness. And then at that point, we can truly begin to heal the systems that are in our physical, mental, and emotional bodies that have been fucked with, that have been manipulated and controlled, that have been programmed and overlaid, that have been frequency fenced for aeons on the human race. It's quite a challenge. It's like all of a sudden, it's like your awareness just like increases, and you feel and you sense, and everything around you becomes magical, and you're connecting to your higher aspect, you're connecting to the higher force, and you're feeling that ignition take place in context of electricity. It's so powerful inside. And so you start to have this epiphany of and realizing, wow, there's something bigger here at work than what I have been told, what I've been shown, what I've been taught. And so every individual has their own path to get to this process. But this is the process. This is where we want to get into the spirits, into the connecting soul and spirit together, bridging the energy systems in context so that we are grounded into the planetary Templar and grounded and connected to the sun and to the central sun, and then being able to work with the planetary aspect here. I think many people are really not ready for that. There's still so much healing to do within all of us. And so that's something you need to be called to if you're going to work with planetary grids. Believe me, it's not something that you actually want to do. It's something that you have to be called to do, that you know how to do, that you've done in past incarnations, that you've already got codex for, you've got templating for. It's not something you just want to go out and do just because, oh, I'm going to go do this. It's something that you need to definitely look at and be called to if you're going to be doing that. Anyway, it's a side note. I was in the spirit and behold a throne. What is a throne? I don't look at a throne as being a hierarchical aspect. Just get that bullshit out of your mind right now. The heavens are within you. So once you understand that revelation, again, there's that word, that unveiling, that apocalypto, right? Then you're going to realize that, fuck, man, this whole time I've been told a lie. I've been told a lie that God is outside somewhere running around and the Holy Ghost is out running around the planet somewhere. And if you say the magic fucking words, you're going to be in. That's bullshit. It's been bullshit from the beginning when they spun it out, along with the hell construct, the burning forever, your eternal soul. It's all bullshit. And you got to get past, if you're a Christian listening to this, you got to get past that programming. That programming is locking you down in context to that veil of religion, that first veil of sorcery that you haven't even got past yet. So you need to get past that shit. Burn that program. That virus, burn that shit, right? Took me a while to get through it, but I finally did. And you can too. So, okay, let's get back to it. A throne was set in heaven and one who sit on the throne. So a throne is nothing more than a seat of sovereignty. That's what I see it as being. It's a ceremonial chair or a place where you are in your sovereignty, in your true sovereignty, and you are sitting on your own fucking throne of your life. You are running your own life. You are running it. Nothing else is running your system. Nothing else is running your energies. You are in control of your energies. That is setting upon your throne. That is what that means. The king is on his throne. What does the king do? When he commands, right? And he makes a commandment upon the throne to the collective and sets in a law, he pins it, and then he decrees it or galders it. So we need to be galdering our sovereignty, guys. This is being on the throne of your high heart and heart core intelligence and your high heart or your fifth chamber. This is where you will be operating your life from. This is where we want to get. This is the goal, okay? This is the goal of it. A throne is nothing more than the pinnacle. You could say it is the capstone of the pyramid. It is the ignition of the high heart or the heart core intelligence or the star core ignition when you are on your throne. You are mastering your thought and emotion. So what is the fifth chamber? The fifth heart chamber. What is it? It is a little spot behind the heart's chamber, also called the hot spot. It is the hottest space in the physical body. It's protected by the sinus node. It contains the geometry of the Dodecahedron, which is actually the spark of God within you. that activates this high consciousness, this higher level of consciousness. Some call it the Christ consciousness. And so this is what needs to be activated in context to the physical aspect of your high heart intelligence, which is really put out in context to vibration and correspondence. This is why we have so much trauma, because we have so much overlaid, so many programs running. There's so many layers, like an onion, that need to be unpeeled. We have to start to begin the alchemical process so that we can get to the place where our heart core is ignited. I really believe that this can happen. But as Magi, this is essential to your path work. So what is a dodecahedron? It's basically a platonic solid, one of the five. And it is a pentagram. It's a solid figure with 12 equal pentagonal faces. It has 30 edges and 20 corners. So this particular platonic solid is very unique because it is the only platonic solid that if you start at any corner of the surface and draw an infinite number of straight lines across the figure, they will actually return to their original point without crossing over any other of the other corners. So if you start at a corner of the surface and draw an infinite number from the vertice or from the corner in a straight line across the dodecahedron, none of those lines will touch, and each line will go back to its original source or original point. Okay, so I want to get in here to a little bit about how the dodecahedron has been manipulated and how it has been really fucked with in context to the reversals on this planet and to all of the things that are going on, that have been going on this 26,000 year cycle. See, the dodecahedron is the five elements. It is responsible for the building blocks of time and space. It is the only platonic solid that is able to do what it does. But again, it has been locked down by the cube aspect. So I'm going to read a little bit here from the Ascension Glossary. This is Lisa Renee's work, just in context to what has happened to this particular platonic solid. And that's taking it back to the heart chamber, or why things are locked down in our high heart and we're not getting the ignition that we're supposed to be getting through the process because of the lockdown of the tesseract and the cube aspect. I'm going to read this, and this is going to get into the alien machinery, the black hole technology, and the black goo. I'm just going to read it from the Ascension Glossary itself. Here we go. Through many wars and genocidal campaigns that have taken place over lifetimes, including alien hybridization breeding programs to infect our original blood and DNA, the intruding races gradually took away more and more of our natural energy resources and blank slated our history during the end of the major astrological cycle. See, the history that we have right now that they're putting out there as our history is a bunch of bullshit. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just what they want you to know. There's bits and pieces here. There's little breadcrumbs, Hansel and Gretel. There's these little breadcrumbs here and there. We have to go back inside of ourselves, to find this in context to our own codes and our own DNA. Major outfits of alien machinery or black hole technology was further installed approximately every 6,500 years or 6,480 years during each quarter of the 26,000 year cycle. This is what we're on right now, this Atlantean cycle that's trying to come up for review and repeat itself and carry on their bullshit. They did this to gain control over the magnosphere through the manipulation of the dodecahedron geometry, which has great influence on organic magnetism, carbon matter, and manifesting timelines. By gaining control over the properties of the dodecahedron, which is the five elements, and its connection to our sun, by running and merging artificial magnetism tied to the lunar matrix. Okay, so here we get into the lunar matrix or the Saturn moon matrix, how they're controlling time, how they're controlling the emotional thought and emotional aspects in context to jamming the moon so that we cannot have this heart core ignition that's taking place in context to the dodecahedron or the high heart chamber. This combination was used as a weapon to induce surface weather catastrophes, such as major global floods. We have discovered that the dodecahedron, which is a primary platonic solid geometry connected to the ethers, and liquid plasma transmitting by our sun have 6,480 degrees, the sum of all angles of all of its faces. Tesla told us that the ethers behave as a liquid for matter and as a solid for light and heat. And the other geometries act as the building blocks of our matrix, which need the structural framework of the ethers component through the dodecahedron geometry, which is the ether in function. So literally the dodecahedron is the ether in function. The rest of the platonic solids and elements are organized within all the energy flows into specific frequency patterns throughout our dimensions of time and space. The bottom line for the negative alien agenda is to control the dodecahedron properties of the 6,480 degrees, and by doing so, have control over matter forms and what manifests on the Earth's surface. This geometric or geodotic knowledge behind the rig system of creating the prison planet and has played a significant role in how this hidden invasion was accomplished by the invaders. You see, the prison planet is a state of mind. Everything goes back to your state of mind and the slave mentality. If you can break out of that fucking veil, right? Break out of that aspect, then you can flip it and you're no longer a slave to the agenda. This is why state of mind becomes so fucking important to our pathwork. What are we going to manifest in context to the 10th gate, in context to Earth magic, which is the Saturnian energy that's been what? Inverted. Again, we're running on these reversals with Saturn. So we're looking at that Saturn moon matrix in context to what? The 10-4 axis or the gates, the 10-4 gates. See, that's Cancer and that's Capricorn. Cancer's ruled by Moon, Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. So this is the aspect in context to what we are dealing with here. Okay, so I'm going to take it now into the black goo. This is the nanotechnology in context to what's being manipulated. Okay, black goo. Nanotechnology is the manipulation of matter on an atomic, molecular, and supramolecular scale, and for our purpose of discussion. You see, this gets into the graphene, this gets into everything that we're dealing with here in context to what? The needlecraft, and what's been going on here since 2020 when they had to push their plan up and play their hand. So this is the manipulation in context to this on the quantum levels. This is what's happening inside, right? This is what we're actually dealing with, guys. So what is the black goo? It's nanotechnology that is manipulated on an atomic, molecular, and supramolecular scale, and for our purpose of discussion on the quantum levels. This is what it is. So let's look at it in context to the needlecraft and the graphene and what's been actually put into the needlecraft in context to how things are being manipulated to what? To the elements. See, this gets into understanding the dodecahedron and how the elements are being manipulated within the collective. Fire, water, earth, air, soul. It's all being manipulated in context, see? And so this is what we have to realize, that the black goo acts as a faux synthetic artificial intelligence element that mimics and controls carbon allotropes and how they function in the dodecahedron structures on Earth. It is clearly how the negatives have been accessing carbon elements to control matter forms, including control over genetic expressions of the human body. This programmed alien AI has infected carbon material and is what has taken over the platonic solid of the dodecahedron and related pentagonal geometries that build time-space constructs. These time-space constructs are instruction sets in the morphogenic fields that run into the ley lines. These are the grids of the planetary body. This is how they have built artificial realities and false timelines and projected them into the false holograms or AI timelines. The spherical fullerene has something to do with the AI control over carbon-based matter at the molecular structure level that can control genetic expression. So look, this is what's going on in context to the needlecraft and what's been happening since 2020. But this is nothing new. This has been going on for a very, very fucking long time. It's just coming back up for review in context to what their plan is and what they're wanting to do here. Guys, we have to break out of this bullshit, out of these reversals and inversions, and by doing so, ignite the high heart, ignite the dodecahedron in alignment so that you're creating your own time and space in context to earth magic. And that's the Saturnian aspect, bringing it in from the ninth gate of the heart core expression to your galactic center, which is Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is running the heart core intelligence in context to the 10th gate when we come into our true earth magic. And so that's why Libra becomes so important, because Libra is the gate of balance. It's the gate of harmony. It's the gate of peace. It's the gate of wisdom. And we're in balance. And as we balance the hemispheres and we balance ourselves, we're coming into the neutrality place so that we can access our galactic center in context, get that high heart ignited, and then come into our true alignment with earth magic, flip the Saturnian energies in context, and bring the manifestation of the original timeline on our planet. So this is why it's so important to understand these platonic solids in context to the pentagrammal aspect and understanding them in context to the elements of the magician, getting into the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th gates. Understanding that the 7th gate is the access point, Libra, which is what we're talking about with going back to the runes and Tiwas. We were looking at the Jasper stone, right? So in context to how that's working, 7th gate coming up from that 6th gate lockdown, or 6th dimensional lockdown with the cube or the tesseract, you can look and see how you can transcend that into your heart core intelligence to the ignition, but becoming balanced and understanding balance in all things, understanding harmony in all things, understanding justice, understanding natural law, understanding how things work, understanding how your own system mechanics work, grabbing a hold of your true purpose, your true potential here, because the gate of Libra and the gate of Sagittarius are connected through the gate of Scorpio. Scorpio being the transformative part and the transmutation aspect. It's all connected, man. So you've got your 7th gate of Libra, your 8th gate of Scorpio, and the 9th gate to the Jupiter aspect or Sagittarius aspect, which is the fire magic, or you could say that is the place where the ignition takes place. And then the cube comes in to that earth magic, and you learn how to work within the structure itself to your own energy system and to have the 9 worlds and the 8 gates to the 9 worlds. That's how this works. And so you're in control of your energy system. See, you want to call it a Merkaba field, a spindle. We have to become in control of what we're manifesting, what's coming forth out of our lives, out of our energy systems. Okay, I'm going to throw this segment into a break at the moment. Pay attention to what's coming up here. A great sage, Michael Tsarion, is going to break down the seeds of evil in context. It's a little 3-minute video, so take a listen here, and we'll be back right after the video. Okay.
They can't win because, as I've all said in my other metaphysical work, evil contains within it the seeds of its own destruction. And one really needs to meditate on that deeply and also see it applied in your own life, with the tossers that surround us and all the other evil injustices that are done, even in plain view. Watch that experience. Watch what happens to a person who's evil and ruthless and negative. Just observe it. And you'll notice that this is in fact the case. And it's certainly the case up the fractal. Evil contains within it the seed of its own destruction. The moment that you take that kind of anti-human negative stance, you're just waving a red flag to nature, go come and get me, which is exactly what's happening now. It's called the age of revealing and the age of awakening. All the message that somebody like me can give is, can you please get into the spirit of that? Because it's happening anyway. And you can either get into sync with it, or you can just sit there and be smashed when the river takes a turn. Your ego boat, right, will be smashed. Can you let go of the shores, like the Hopi prophecy says? Can you let go of the oars and go with that flow? Because it's a very dynamic flow, and it will handle it. What happens with us is that we think, oh my God, what's little old me going to do? It's really difficult, and then it becomes like you're suddenly taking it personally, as if your ego is going to be able to run out there like in the old days, grab a sword and do something about it. We have no capacity in that realm. It's a mixture between tremendous responsibility and self-awareness of it, but at the same time the ability to, as Neil was saying, go yin, let go, and let the higher force guide you. Because without that guidance, you're pottering around. It's like a kid with a giant sword, playing games. A higher form of guidance and a higher form of strategy takes care of this. It doesn't mean abnegate your responsibility, but it means try to always remain with your head in the clouds but your feet on the ground. This is both a physical war, but it's also a psychic one. And the guidance that comes to you is the most important thing, and it will show you where to go and what to do about it. And that kind of particular guidance I'm talking about is not the same kind of sorcery that the Black Lodge has. They have high intelligence, and they have tremendous human knowledge about us on the most fundamental levels. But they lack that connection to the higher intelligence. And that's their ultimate downfall, together with what I said about evil having the seeds of destruction within it. You choose that road, and you will be terminal. You choose the organic, living, feminine, flow of the Tao, and no matter what tyrannies exist in the world, no matter how things get bleak, even if things get 10 times as bleak as they are now, worse, like a prison planet, really and truly, as long as you're with that flow, you're in your center, and it doesn't matter, you see. So it's all about where you are, and they can't inhabit that place, which is why they want dominion, right, over the world. If you can't rise yourself, what's the next best thing? Push everybody down. You're actually remaining exactly where you are, but you've done a good job, like the teachers and bastards we have to deal with every day. They're going to, push you down, and then they feel mighty high. Well, that's what the Bushes and Obamas and the Stalins and all do. They cannot rise themselves, and we have to understand this. They're static spiritually. And the moment that you start doing your spiritual homework, the moment that you do your spiritual homework, you are then on the road to victory.
So we're back from the break. Great video. Did you hear what he said at the end of the video? The moment you start doing your spiritual homework, you're on the road to victory. And this is the deal, man. This is the fucking deal with people on this planet, is they don't give a shit. See? They don't ask questions. They're not asking. They're not seeking. They're not knocking. They're not asking what the fuck's up. They're not even engaging in the concept of why am I even here, or who am I? So this is the problem with mankind, with the human race, because we're so locked down in this first veil that we can't see the forest from the fucking trees. This is where we have to do our spiritual homework. We have to, like he said, we have to rise above it. And this is getting your heart core intelligence activated, becoming emotionally intelligent, understanding how you keep your thought and emotion in alignment in context to the gates of Libra, and understanding that wisdom that comes forth from that gate to transformation to the Scorpion gate. This is how things work. And it was a great video, and I just wanted to share that with you. Okay, let's get back into the segments. Okay. So let's just face it, man. Not many people are on their throne. Not many people are on their own power and authority, running their own system and running their own energy system. This is the goal. This is where we want to get. This is why I'm teaching, because this is something that I am striving for, to be on my throne, in control of my energy system all the time. And of course, things are going to flux. We know that they're going to go back and forth. You get on the pendulum swing. It's just a fact. The key is to recognize the indifference. And when you start to recognize it, that's awareness that's created in context so you can make the right choices. This is how you do it. The throne is nothing more than your sovereignty. It is your sovereignty, and you actually on your own throne, on your own sovereignty, running your energy system. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper, and there was a rainbow round about the throne, in sight like unto an emerald. Getting into that aspect, what does jasper actually represent? Because it says here what? That he that sat was to look upon like a jasper. Okay, what is a jasper? It's a multicolored stone, most commonly red, but can be yellow, brown, green, or it's rarely blue. And it does have a variety of quartz. But interesting enough, its crystal structure is a hexagram. So the crystal system is a hex or hexagonal. Now, isn't that interesting in context to the hex or the Star of David is in the middle with the hexagon? When you go deeper with this research, that you start to see how things are actually locked down in context, see, to the Metatronics and to the hex and to the AI system that we're dealing with here. Man, it blows my mind when I get into this research. It's so profound. It's just so awesome to break things down. Okay, so the correspondence to Jasper is a Libra. Okay, so if you want to take Libra, we can look at the Libra is it's the scales, right? So this is the gate. You're not going to be able to pass through the gate of Libra until you have become balanced and harmonized. This is the challenge for all of us, is to balance our heart with the feather, right? This is the challenge that Anubis describes to us as we come to that energy, to that archetype, to pass through the gate. Jasper is the representation of passing through the gates of wisdom. Its correspondence is Libra. Okay, that's its astrological correspondence in context. So if Libra is the gates of wisdom with the seventh gate, and the Jasper crystal structure represents the hex or the sixth gate, this is what's locking us down in context to passing through the gates of wisdom, coming out of our underworld in context, and having the ignition take place to Scorpio, which is actually the eagle on the Wheel of Fortune card. So this is the deal, see? And you see how it correlates in context to what we're actually looking at here in Revelation 4 on the actual Metatronic side of things. What's the planetary correspondence? The planetary correspondence is Mars and Jupiter, okay? Mars and Jupiter. First of all, going back to Libra, let's look at what that represents in context to the runes. It's Tiwas, right? So it's justice. Tyr, it's justice. It's being able to create a sacrifice in your individual life that is then inputted into collective consciousness and for the good of the collective consciousness. But it's also your own personal sacrifice in context to that, getting into, the mythos and Fenrir, and understanding, the whole story of Fenrir. If you don't know the story, go back and read it. I'm not going to explain it to you right now, but go read it because it's a very powerful archetype, very powerful story in context to how things are done, and what Tyr represents. So we're dealing with Tyr, we're dealing with Tiwas here in justice, and the correspondence to that is the oak tree and sage. So sage, the idea of sage is to clear out the polarities. That's the idea of sage. That's its attribute. So when you're saging yourself or you're saging a room, what you're trying to do is you're trying to clear out the polarized energies. That's what sage does, You're not trying to, form an intent with sage, I don't think. I think you're trying to clear out and create a neutral space, something that's not charged. And I believe that that's how sage is actually supposed to work in context to being able then to co-create whatever you want to put into that space then. See, your own signature frequency, see, your own sovereignty in that space, That's the idea of sage, the idea of Libra, justice. Okay, so Jasper is correspondence with Libra. Now let's get to Mars. So the planetary aspect is Mars and Jupiter, okay? These are fire elements. Mars is a planet of what? Fire, okay? Jupiter is a planet of what? Fire. It is the 1 and 9 gates. It is Aries and Sagittarius, right? So we're talking about Aries being the initiating fire, Sagittarius being the fire that is teaching. the fire magic that you're being taught. So actually, it is the higher learning, it is the higher mind, it is the higher self in context to Jupiter. So Mars, what rune does Mars represent? Thoros, right? It's the Emperor card. It's Thor, okay? And it also is the oak tree as well. So it's interesting because, when you get into Libra being the oak tree and Mars being the oak tree, there's a correspondence there with that aspect. If you want to take it to a druidic perspective, go look up what the oak tree represents. I'm not going to get into it here on this segment, but, go look at it, because these are why we do these segments, so you can go and check things out. Thorazaz, Mars, Emperor card, Thor, right? Go look at the story of Thor and Jormungandr. See, these are all archetypes here. All right, so this is Thorazaz. Thorazaz is what? It's the breaking, right? The breaking of the overlays. It is I think, like smashing the overlays, just pulverizing them. And it's also protection. It's also luck. That's what Jupiter represents as well. So getting into the ninth gate of Jupiter, we represent this as expansion of consciousness. This is basically what the hammer or Thor's hammer or the Thorazaz represents. It is the expansion of consciousness. So when we're looking at the Mars energy, that's what we want to get into. So taking it to Jupiter, I believe that is also Thorazaz in context, but it's also Manas, which is mankind, or Man. So that's in context of the Magician card. If you want to get into it, Heimdall, Odin, the sacrificing of oneself unto oneself, the hero's journey, and understanding what this actually is going on here, what is actually being seen when we're talking about seeing that of Jasper. This is what it means. See? It means that we're passing through the gates of wisdom, being initiated by our Mars energy, our action, what we're putting into action, what we're actually becoming the true emperor of our own lives, the true sovereign person or being of our own life. And then the Thor energy or the Thorazaz begins to go to work in context to what that rune represents to remove the programming, remove the overlays, remove the frequency fences, and burn through those. What herb context to this energy? It's leeks. It's onions, right? What the fuck are onions? They're layers. So you've got to go through, you've got to burn through the layers, man. You got to unpeel those fuckers, burn those fuckers up. See, and then the onion is also pungent, right? So what do you do when you cut an onion, man? You start crying. Dissolution begins to happen because of all the power of that onion's hitting your eyes. So you've got this process, this alchemical process taking place here with this herb, with leeks. They help to clean the blood, to pull out the impurities. Onions and garlic are aromatics. That's what we call them in the chef's world. They're aromatics. And so when you're putting them in food, when they start to get fire underneath them, they begin to put off an aromatic, like any other herb. Just getting into what the leeks represent in context to Mars. So Jupiter, getting into that, I believe is also Thorazaz, again, I said, and Manas as well. And that gets into the Magician card, realizing these behaviors and these loops and these patterns that we've been on, what's been running our system with these programs for aeons. And we've got to engage in the hero's journey of Heimdall and the sacrifice of oneself unto oneself with Odin. And this is the representation of the holly tree. The holly tree is the traditional wand of the druid, the wand of fire, getting into what Jupiter actually represents. The herb of this particular aspect is an herb called Madar, but it's Madder. That is the herb of Mars. And Jupiter is corresponding to that because Jupiter or Sagittarius is teaching Aries. It's the octave of the fire, okay? So you've got to go right to the octave of Scorpio, and then once Scorpio is worked through, you go to Sagittarius, which is the ninth gate, which is the fire aspect and the mutable aspect of that fire. You are absolutely, the teacher, you become the guru, of the lessons and the profound pathwork that you've walked through. So matter, what is matter? It means basically to open up, or it opens up whatever's there, and then it begins to bind it and then strengthen. So it opens, it binds, and it strengthens. And it's used for the liver, for jaundice, cleaning and cleansing, and it's also used for the spleen, obstructions of the spleen. So interesting, the spleen is what cleans the blood. It's very interesting how these herbs are corresponding to the jasper stone. Pretty powerful. I mean, if you start to think about it, you start to go, holy crap, how powerful is this? Okay, so this is what we're looking at. So I broke all that down on this one scripture that says, and he that sat was to look upon like a jasper. You see how everything correlates and corresponds when we start to see it. So when you break it down, you realize, get to this position where, you are working with that jasper stone within yourself. These are the runes that are in context to correspondence to that. The runes are the real 24 elders around the throne, around your sovereignty, your seat of sovereignty. They are the real 24 elders, not this, bullshit that's supposedly up in heaven somewhere that's just around, like there's God and he's on his throne and everybody's all on the throne and 24 elders are all around the throne and singing holy, holy, holy forever. You get past that shit. That's all just fucking imagery that is just bullshit. This is getting into the real deal of what actually means. And the real 24 elders around your throne. Okay, I think that wraps up this particular segment. There will be a part 2 to this, into the rest of this scripture, and then also into the Wheel of Fortune card and breaking that down with episode 3 of Secrets of the Magi. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to get a hold of me for a reading, a rune reading, a tarot reading, astrological blueprint, any of the above, counseling, transits, whatever you want to get into, you can hit me up at heartcoreproductions9@gmail.com. You can go to my Facebook page, Heartcore Productions, and hit me up, Rodney Goodwin, on Messenger. You can hit me up on Telegram at White Dragon, or you can hit me up on my website, which is heartcoreproductions.com, on the contact page. Check out the website. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There will be more segments coming in the near future. Looking forward to putting more content out for everyone. Again, I hope you enjoyed the segment, and much love to everyone. Be empowered. Live your life in the power of your alignment, connected to the higher force, out of the high heart intelligence that's yours, birthright. Okay, much love.
Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields of bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning, death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwash minds. Oh, Lord, yeah. Now in darkness world stops turning, ashes where the body's burning. No more war pigs have the power, and as God has struck the hour, day of judgment God is calling. On the knees the war pigs crawling, begging mercies for the sins. Satan laughing spreads his wings. Oh Lord, yeah.